Good morning. My name is Dr. Lorey, and I'm here to share a book with you this morning. The title of the book I will read today is The Growing Up Feat by Beverly Cleary. When are my feet going to grow up? Jimmy asked one morning as he wiggled his toes. They're growing all the time, said Mother. They have grown so much that it is time to go to the shoe store and talk to Mr. Markle about new shoes. For me too, asked Janet, Jimmy's twin sister. For both of you, said Mother. Our feet are growing up, Jimmy shouted. Our feet are growing up. New shoes, we're going to get new shoes, sang Janet. Then she said, and I'm hoping to surprise Mr. Lemon with new shoes when he brings the mail. Janet liked to surprise people, especially Mr. Lemon. Mother and the twins drove to the shoe store, where they sat in 3 chairs in a row, with Mother in the middle. Mr. Markle pulled up a stool and sat down in front of them. What will my favorite customers have today? He asked. Shoes, said Jimmy. Our feet are growing up. No kidding, said Mr. Markle. He felt the toes of Jimmy's and Janet's shoes. Then he took off their shoes and asked each of them to stand on his measuring stick while he slid the wooden piece to the tips of their toes. Mr. Markle shook his head. Sorry, he said. Your kids aren't ready for new shoes. No new shoes? Jimmy and Janet looked at their mother and said, You told us we were ready for new shoes. Mother sighed. Mothers can be wrong sometimes, she said. That made Jimmy and Janet feel better. A little, but not much. Mr. Markle looked disappointed too. He sniffed and rubbed his eyes with his fist and looked so silly that Jimmy and Janet almost smiled. Janet leaned against Mother. I won't have a surprise for Mr. Lemon today, she said, and looked very, very sad. Mr. Lemon likes to surprise him. We'll think of another surprise, said Mother, but it won't be new shoes, answered Janet. I want new shoes, said Jimmy. Now, Jimmy, said Mother, you're a big boy. No, I'm not, said Jimmy. My feet didn't grow up. How would you each like a balloon? Asked Mr. Markle. Jimmy and Janet took the balloons. But they did not really want balloons. They wanted new shoes. You know something, said Mr. Markle. We have some boots on sale. We can't buy boots to fit older shoes, said Mother. These boots stretch, said Mr. Markle. They'll fit old shoes and new shoes too. And you know something else? These boots are red. Red boots? Jimmy and Janet looked up at Mother. Good, said Mother. Let's buy new boots. For me? Asked Jimmy. For me? Asked Janet. For both of you, said Mother. Mr. Markle brought out bright red boots, which he would fit the old shoes. There you are, kids, he said. Just what the Easter Bunny ordered. Jimmy and Janet thought Mr. Markle was such a silly man. They knew Easter was a long time ago. Jimmy wore his boots, but Janet carried hers in their box. The twins were so happy they didn't even stop to get the Hobby Lobby on their way out the door. Mother remembered to say thank you to Mr. Markle. When Mother and the twins returned home, they found Mr. Lemon had already delivered the mail. Janet hid her box of boots in the closet. I'm going to save my boots to show Daddy, she said, and tomorrow I will surprise Mr. Lemon. Jimmy, don't you want to take off your boots? Asked Mother. No, said Jimmy, and ran out into the yard. In a little while he came back in. I can't find any puddles, he said. Of course there aren't any puddles, said Mother. It isn't raining. When is it going to rain? Asked Jimmy. I don't know, answered Mother. There aren't any clouds, so it won't rain today. Will it rain tomorrow? Asked Jimmy. I don't know, said Mother. I don't think so. The next day? Asked Jimmy. I don't know. Mother sounded tired as she made sandwiches for lunch. New boots and no puddles. Jimmy pretended he was walking in puddles, but he wanted real puddles and real water. Janet waited and waited for Daddy to come home so she could show him her red boots in their box. When Daddy came home, he was surprised once to see Jimmy wearing new boots and surprised twice when Janet opened her box to show him her boots. After the surprise, Janet put her boots on too. "Our feet didn't grow up," said Jimmy, "and Mother said they did." "Don't worry, they will," said Daddy. Jimmy and Janet wore their boots while they ate their dinner. They were hot, but they didn't care. And at bedtime, they pulled their boots on over their feet of their sleepers. When Mother said they could not sleep with their boots over their sleepers because their feet would be too hot, they slept with their boots in their hands. In the morning, Jimmy and Janet pulled their new boots on over their shoes. "My goodness," said Mother, "you will wear your boots out before we have any rain." This morning, Daddy put on an old pair of pants and a sweatshirt. "Are you going to stay home today?" asked Jimmy as he watched Daddy shave. He liked to watch so he would know how when he was old enough to shave off whiskers of his own. "Yes, today is Saturday," answered Daddy. Janet, who knew she would never have whiskers like Daddy, was in the kitchen with Mother. "I wish Mr. Lemon would hurry up and come," she said. After breakfast, Jimmy said to Daddy, "If we went for a walk, maybe we could find some puddles." Daddy smiled. "I'm afraid not, but I know what we can do. Come outside with me." "I'm going to sit on the front step and watch for Mr. Lemon," said Janet. Daddy backed the car out of the garage. Then he turned on the hose and started to wash the car. Water ran down the driveway. "Puddles!" shouted Jimmy and began to splash. Janet decided Mr. Lemon would be surprised to see wet boots when the sun was shining, so she splashed too. Mother stood in the doorway watching her twins have fun. Daddy turned on the hose onto the grass and made a big puddle. Jimmy and Janet squished and splashed in the wet grass. Their boots were wet, but their shoes were dry. Then they saw Mr. Lemon coming down the street with his leather bag full of letters and catalogs. "You stay here," Janet told Jimmy. "I want to surprise Mr. Lemon." "Okay," said Jimmy, and went on stomping and splashing. "Say," said Mr. Lemon when Janet ran to meet him, "look at those red boots and all those wet footprints when the sun is shining." Janet was happy because she could see Mr. Lemon really was surprised. When the mailman reached the sidewalk, Jimmy stopped splashing to explain. "My feet didn't grow up. They are still the same size inside my boots." "Don't worry," said Mr. Lemon. "Before you know it, your feet will be bigger than mine." "They will?" Jimmy looked at Mr. Lemon's feet. They were even bigger than Daddy's feet. "And do you know something?" asked Mr. Lemon as he handed Jimmy the catalogs to carry. "When you get new shoes, those boots will grow to fit." Now it was Janet's turn to be surprised. "How do you know?" she asked Mr. Lemon. "I've learned a thing or two in my lifetime," said Mr. Lemon. Jimmy and Janet splashed in their puddle. "We have growing up feet," they shouted. "We have growing up feet boots too," Mr. Lemon said, and he knew a thing or two. Thank you for letting me share The Growing Up Feet by Beverly Cleary. I hope you all have a wonderful day.